Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and of the general nature thereof? I see none. Then we'll move on to the approval of the council minutes. The minutes held in a public meeting, June 13th. Looking for mover and seconder. Councillor Hammond, support by Councillor Jacobs. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? And carried. Is there any business arising out of those minutes? I see none. There are no public meetings or court of revision, but we do have some reports of staff and delegations. This evening we're going to start off with our MPP, Mr. Rick Nichols, Chatham, Kent, Essex, Queen's Park update.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. Councillors, guests, and those watching tonight's meeting on TV. As the MPP for Chatham, Kent, Essex, I want you to know, first of all, that I am deeply honored to represent this riding at Queen's Park and to work hard for the major issues affecting specifically the Leamington area. And tonight my purpose is to provide a Queen's Park update that now that the legislature has in fact risen for the summer, and just in case you may be thinking, I won't be taking it easy for the next 3 months. But I must confess, I did take yesterday off. It was Father's Day. And you know, I spent time with, able to spend time with my wife and my children and grandchildren. You want to know something? If I'd have known that being a grandfather is going to be so much fun, I would have been nicer to the parents. So now that you know that I had, but also, just so that you know, I had, prior to leading up to Father's Day, the 2 days prior to that, I only had 7 events that I had to attend to. And today is my 4th event. So I am busy on those days when I choose not to take off, and so on. But on a more serious note, I would like to chat with you briefly tonight about natural gas and what's going on, as I'm sure many people have heard. Also want to talk about the 2 community safety bills that I've put forward, which have received second reading approval. The ORPP, which as you know affects a lot of small businesses. The recent cabinet shuffle, the Ministry of Health successes that I've had in the Leamington area. Talk a little bit about the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Ministry, as well as the Environment and Climate Change Ministry. I want to talk briefly about the new Minister of Energy, touch on some of the municipal affairs, and now the municipal oversight by the Ombudsman, and lastly, municipal legislation. So moving right along, I'd like to talk just briefly about natural gas for a moment. As you may have heard, and I'm more than willing to conduct a town hall meeting rather, here in Leamington, as I did in Chatham, with regards to the natural gas challenge that's being brought forth by this current government. And the town hall meeting that I had actually organized, and we brought in some very good speakers from Unigas and from around the area. We had well over 155 people in attendance. We just filled the room to capacity and then some. But you know, it's clear that reducing the use of natural gas is a goal for this government. And we saw it in their leaked cabinet plan and cabinet minutes. And now they've simply changed the messaging, but don't be fooled by that. To meet their 2030 target, you know, we think 2030, that's a long ways away. It's not a long ways away. It's about 14 years away, if that, when you think about it. The current government have stated that they have to reduce natural gas consumption in Ontario by 40%. Fossil fuels, reduce it by 40%, while increasing the cost on families and businesses. Now, you know, it's interesting to note that in discussions I've had with the president of Unigas, he said, Rick, normally we would take a look at plant that we put in the ground, which is in the billions of dollars, and we'd spread that cost over 40 years. Well, now, if this is what they're doing, we're going to have to shorten that period from 40 to maybe 20 years. And of course, if they want to get that ROI, return on investment, then of course that's going to force them to raise their prices. Now that all still has to go before the Ontario Energy Board. Ontarians are already struggling to pay the bills. A net zero home, and that's some of the terminology that they've been using. A net zero home, which means no fossil fuels, will cost up to $150,000 more than an average home, devastating the dreams of homeownership and countless young families. And now, Union Gas says that they have to reevaluate their proposed natural gas expansions. So I, along with the Chatham-Kent Council, have made it clear that Chatham-Kent supports the natural gas industry and relies on the many jobs it provides. Realizing, of course, the head office for Union Gas is in Chatham, whereby it employs about 850 people, but thousands across Ontario, and those are direct jobs. The concern I have is if they have to start cutting back, now all of a sudden you're looking at the indirect jobs as well. Because I'm sure that all of us, or the majority of the people in this room this evening, they heat their homes with natural gas. You may have a gas dryer. You may have a gas stove. You may have a gas water heater. You may even have a gas barbecue, and if you happen to have a pool, you may have a gas heater as well. So there's a lot of other industries involved, and I'm very concerned about that. I've been very, I guess the word would be intense when it comes to dealing with this government and, of course, some of the things that they're targeting right now. It would devastate not only those businesses, but what about the greenhouse business here in Leamington? It would devastate. They can't heat with hydro at all. So together we have to continue to push back against the province on that, and there'll be more to come. Now, the two other things I'd mentioned earlier about two bills that I have introduced to the legislature. Keep in mind that my role as the PC critic, as your MPP, but as the PC critic for community safety and correctional services. So back in 2014, just after this last election, in June of 2014, I introduced a bill which in fact was called the Highway Traffic Act Amendment School Bus Camera System. That particular bill passed second reading unanimously. Now what that was a bill, or what that is rather, is a bill that in fact will prosecute anyone who in fact, once a school bus is stopped, the lights are flashing and the stop arm is out, we have a camera attached to that, and anyone who does what I call a blow-by, well then the camera will capture that, and the bill basically is asking that video evidence captured on that camera can in fact be used to prosecute someone who in fact did a blow-by. And I know there's a lot of questions with regards to that, so if you loan your vehicle out to a son or daughter and they do a blow-by, the bill's going to come to you if the car's in your name. But we have that, and I've been working on finding businesses that in fact will sponsor, and it's all lined up. They have to call it. And the most recent bill that I introduced was Bill 161. This is a very serious bill. It's entitled the Ground Current Pollution Act. And basically what it is right now going on in rural Ontario, there are farmers that are losing their herds of cattle, livestock, period. So what does that mean? Well, right now on the return line, the hydroelectricity, when it has to return back to its substation, they're bleeding power off the return lines, running it down a hydro pole, attaching it to a ground rod, and when that current comes down the ground rod, or down the wire into the ground rod, into the ground, it dissipates. It goes wherever. And a lot of farms are experiencing what they call ground current pollution. I spoke with someone at the Leamington Fair, as a matter of fact, on Friday, and she has a farm in Amherstburg. She says, Rick, I've got that. I've just spent lots of time in a farm, just the Herbert Farm, Patrick Herbert Farm, just outside of Thamesville, as well as Peter Stern in Drumbo. Peter Stern has lost over 110 head of cattle, and these are dairy cattle, in the last 10 years. Over 110 head. Because what happens is the current, they feel and sense the current, their hocks swell, they break out in sores in their joints, they get so bad they can't stand. When they can't stand, they have to put them down. And so it's not a good solution, or it's not a good situation, and we're desperately looking for solutions. I've talked with forensic experts in the United States as well as here in Ontario. There are solutions out there, but it's a question of whether or not this government is prepared to spend some coin. It was estimated, and I'm glad you're sitting down, it was estimated that the cost per kilometer is about $200,000 to fix the problem. I said, well, how many kilometers of wire do you have? And they said 78,000 kilometers. I said, well, that's only 15.6 million. I'm giving you 10 years. Budget for 1.5. And I said that with tongue in cheek, but the problem is it's costing animals' lives, costing family farm businesses, and no one has come out yet, but I will say it, that I'm quite certain that electricity in the ground can in fact have adverse effects on human health. And I'm very concerned about that as well. So it's a family farming business as well as human health that is going out there. What's the cost even in terms of healthcare dollars? I talked earlier about the ORPP, the Ontario Registered Pension Plan, and that has in fact gone through. There's a large concern amongst local business owners of all sizes as to what's that going to cost them. And really and truly, if you have staff that are, say, 45 years of age and older, and it's roughly, I'm just going to round it, it's 1.9% of their wage, that money, from an employer's perspective, has to come off their bottom line. So, and that's going to really affect small business owners. They're struggling now. Why do they have to struggle more? And so we're concerned about that. Now, as you may have heard, there's some issues going on right now with the CPP. That's at the federal level. And my understanding is that at the federal level, they need approval of about 7 provinces to make changes to the CPP. If that were to happen, then again, I think this government will backtrack. But to be quite frank with you, that's a good backtrack, because we don't want it. We fought hard against the ORPP right from the very beginning. Recently, you may have read that there has been a cabinet shuffle, and Premier Wynne has now the largest cabinet in the country with 30 ministries in total. It's unbelievable. And the most key influencers have stayed in place, meaning that the government will be the same old Liberals, but they have made a few changes and whatnot. They've shuffled a few of them around. And for example, staying or in the education field, Liz Sandals was the education minister. Well, she is now, and she's the one that approved millions of dollars for pizza without receipts and things of that nature. We kind of joke at that, but now she's she heads up the Treasury Board. Moving right along, we also have Bob Chiarelli, who was the Minister of Energy, and Bob has been moved into a different position now, and a new fellow who was a former NDP MP from Sudbury, Glenn Thibeault, is now the Minister of Energy, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I want to focus on health. Health stayed the same. And in defense of Minister Hoskins, being the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, it's a daunting position. He has his hands more than full. But what I will say is, especially when you're in opposition, it's a challenge sometimes to get the government to move favorably, in your riding to make some positive change. But he and I remember several years ago now, I guess 2 or 3 years when Heinz closed, and we had the announcement right here in the chamber. And I recall that Minister Hoskins and I were speaking about that, and he did come down, and we'd had some meetings, and that's when I first started to rub shoulders with him. But then he was the Minister of Economic Development. Well, because it was a positive relationship, and he's with health is a big issue in our riding. And one of the positive things that he has done is, first of all, we worked together along with many people and a few other groups here in Leamington to keep the OB open at the Leamington District Memorial Hospital. That was a positive. And then there was thought and fears that, well, they might have to close it because your OBGYN was leaving. And when I brought that to his attention, I said, what are we going to do? And currently, the hospital's a bit in the red. We need your help. Long story short, we got the money to get them out of the red. We got more money so that they can now have 2.5, basically, OBGYNs, where now, you originally had 0. And that's a positive. Plus the fact that, this entire riding has been deemed before, because of just the populations and so on, that it was never deemed a high needs area for doctors. Well, they went back in, and they've made some amendments, made some changes, and I'm pleased to say that Leamington, as well as Chatham-Kent, are now high-needs areas, which is a very positive thing, which means we can get more doctors here. And I know you have a wonderful family health team unit here. They can get more doctors, and which is a positive thing. So I'm very, very happy about that. You know, talk about agriculture, food, and rural affairs. Minister Leal is still staying on as the minister, and I'm hoping that every time I would ask a question of the Minister of Energy with regards to the ground current pollution, because to me that's energy, he would punt the ball to the Minister of Agriculture, Food, and Rural Affairs, because they figured it was a rural affair thing, and which it is and it isn't. Again, there's been no change with regards to the environment and climate change. Glenn Murray is still staying on, and his carbon tax, we believe, and everything else that they're trying to do is just simply going to kill the economy in Ontario and force businesses to leave and to go where it's cheaper to do business elsewhere. And that's not a good thing, unfortunately. I mentioned earlier about energy, and Glenn Thibeault, who, again, as I mentioned, was a former NDP MP. He left to join the Liberals, is now the new minister. And reports among energy stakeholders suggested that the former Minister of Energy, Bob Chiarelli, was among the most competent Liberal ministers, and his presence will be missed in the energy sector. And I had a good working relationship with Bob, as a matter of fact. You know, I liked him. And we had some issues with regards to energy. He would allow me to invite some of the businesses, and one comes to mind in Wheatley area, and they made 2 trips down to Toronto, and he spent time with them, and I was there with him as well, discussing energy plans, and of course this global adjustment, which is just killing businesses left, right, and center. It didn't used to be that way. As a matter of fact, I have had a client, as one example, who had a hydro bill of $78. $78. But then you add the global adjustment of over $300. You add carrying charges, which is just over $200, and that $78 bill, you know, rings in at probably just over $600. People can't afford, and that's a home. That's a home. So people just can't do that. Minister Chiarelli apparently is reported to have butted heads with the Minister of the Environment, Mr. Murray, on some of his more radical ideas about climate change action plan, and of course that's the CCAP. And Minister Chiarelli knew that the plans from Minister Murray would in fact be devastating to the energy sector, and he's absolutely right. Even with Minister Chiarelli at the helm, you know, energy costs have continued to skyrocket and continue again to force businesses out of Ontario. An example of that was up in North Bay, whereby there was a mining business up there, and he actually came to Queen's Park and said, listen, this global adjustment, my company paid $1 million in global adjustment. We can't afford that. And if that doesn't get changed, you're going to force us to move to Quebec, which, by the way, was just a few kilometers away. And guess what? They moved to Quebec. And we lost that business, we lost those jobs. Electricity in Quebec is dirt cheap. And of course, one of the things that we do is we sell our excess power dirt cheap after we've paid to produce it. We either sell it dirt cheap or we pay people to take it. And that's the truth when it comes to Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and like I said, sometimes even in Quebec and Manitoba as well. So I guess the biggest question that, in terms of this update on Queen's Park is, will the rookie minister, Minister Thibeault, will he be able to handle the energy ministry portfolio? You know, without a strong energy minister to keep Glenn Murray in check, will he be pushed for a more radical action? And by the way, I might add that Glenn Thibeault, the new energy minister, was the former parliamentary assistant to none other than Glenn Murray, who was the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. So I think there's a history between the two, and so we do have some serious concerns because they work together on that climate change plan. Very quickly, the municipal affairs, there's a new minister, Bill Morrow, and there used to be municipal affairs and housing. and they've split it now. And Bill just has municipal affairs, so that's a standalone ministry. And the new Minister of Housing is a new backbencher, Chris Ballard. Chris was just elected 2 years ago from Newmarket, Aurora, and he is now the Minister of Housing. And lastly, well, I guess it's not quite lastly, talk about the Ombudsman and the municipal oversight. The Ombudsman of Ontario now has oversight over municipalities, which I'm sure you're aware. That came into effect just of January of this year. Previously, the Ombudsman could only investigate closed-door meetings held by councils. The former Ombudsman, I guess, had a tense relationship with AMO and municipalities because he was very aggressive on the issue of potential closed-door meetings, even suggesting that when councilors attended things like birthday parties that it was considered a closed meeting. However, the current Ombudsman appears to be less antagonizing with municipalities. And my understanding is, too, there's an AMO conference coming up, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And lastly, under municipal legislation, new inclusionary zoning, i.e. affordable housing, will most likely be made mandatory only in the GTA area. That's the way it's looking right now, meaning that it would be up to Leamington to decide whether or not you wanted to go that route or not. Changes have been made to the Municipal Elections Act regarding cutoff dates for registering as a candidate for members of council that would be running again. And we were able to get an exemption for leaves of absence for volunteer firefighters running for council. The original Liberal bill required them to take multiple weeks off before the campaign started. And changes to this municipal act will become effective in the fall. And again, the key thing for my office is that we need your feedback. You're the experts dealing with these municipal issues. The official opposition, that's my group, will have its hospitality suite open at AMO, and it's going to be on Monday, August 15th in Windsor. That's where AMO will be held this summer. So again, please stay tuned for that. We do need your input. And that, Council, is my report. Don't know if there would be any questions or not. If there are questions, we'll run it just like a question period. That's why they don't call it question and answer period.
You're gonna yell and scream.
No, there'll be no yelling and screaming.
Okay.
But you can ask the question. I'm not going to guarantee an answer.
You can deflect it to somebody else. Okay, cool. Are there any questions, Councillor Wilkinson?
And Rick, thank you for coming.
My pleasure, Councillor.
I was hoping that maybe you touch on we've had such a bad stretch of accidents on the bypass. I was hoping that maybe you'd expand on that. Do you think that the priority for that road to get expanded, do you think that will happen in the future, near future?
I would like to say yes, but realistically right now, it's not a priority for this government, unfortunately. She has focused and spent a lot of time publicizing what she wants to do for the GTA and getting rid of traffic jams and so on and so forth, the tie-ups there. And that's where a lot of the money is going. And they're taking rural money to put it into the GTA, which I strongly advise against, but they won't listen. I know that we've had a couple of fatalities within the last year or two on Highway 3 there, and that stretch. It's a bad stretch of road. But we continue to keep bringing it to their attention, and maybe we'll eventually, they'll hear us out. The time will tell on that, too.
Councillor Hammond?
Your Worship, thank you. Rick, more in the form of a comment, I was fortunate enough to be at the opening of the fair last Friday when you gave your speech, and I know that the 5 people there really enjoyed it.
Well, it was standing room only. That's because they didn't have any chairs. No, I'm just kidding. They had chairs. That was nice, and you know what? And again, that was the 168th anniversary of the. Now I called it the Leamington Agricultural Society. Is that correct?
It used to be called the Leamington Agricultural Society. I don't know if the name has changed or not, has it?
They've got a couple of different ways of going. Yeah,
That's it, yeah.
So that is, yeah.
Yeah, Tammy had referenced it. But you know what? It takes a lot of work to put something together like that. Tammy and her committee need to be commended for that, because it's time-consuming and frustrating. on a side note, it's unfortunate in Chatham this year, we are not having a Canada Day parade. So, and I was shocked at that. So, our MP, Mr. Van Kesteren, and I are working on something in the morning that I'll be able to attend partly, and then I will be here at the Mennonite home for their big Canada Day celebration. And I think, Your Worship, you and maybe some of your councillors will also be there.
Councillors hopefully will be there. I unfortunately will not.
Well, that's all right. You've
Yep.
been there many other years.
Yes, I have. Yep. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for coming, Rick. I do want you to take back to your party. Not only are businesses affected and households, but utilities are also affected by the cost of electricity. We had our Union Water meeting last week, and our manager put together some figures comparing 2011, the cost and the usage of hydro for the Union Water plant for 2011 compared to 2015. In 2011, our annual costs for hydro, for running the pumps, for lights and everything else in the various properties came to about between $750,000 and $780,000. Over the next 4 years, till 2015, we implemented some hydro-saving, energy-saving things, LED lights and so on, timers, whatever it is. And our costs for 2015 for hydro were $1.1 million. That is a crying shame. That translates to more costs for the individual. Everybody who turns on a light is going to pay for it. And that's what you need to take back. Not only are businesses leaving and in costs in individual homes or residences are increasing, but also the cost of other utilities are increasing. And if this keeps on going, it's going to be an empty province. And what your party needs to do is not just have criticism, but have some concrete solutions to these problems. The other party in the House always has criticisms and never has a solution. We're crying for solutions because that's how the other ones will get out. Take that back. We need to have some concrete, workable solutions so that we can get rid of this horrendous mess. Because the regular people can no longer afford to pay for these things. And the rich don't want to pay for it because their margins decrease. So on and on it goes. It has to stop somewhere. And as I said to our warden last week, I can't believe that in the ruling party, it isn't one or two people that are making these decisions. It's a slew of people. There are checks and balances all the way to the top. And still, they try and implement these crazy ideas, and only when they hear that the masses are outraged, oh my gosh, they're shocked. Is there not a rocket scientist in the group? So I'm begging you, go back with solutions. Tell them it's affecting us, not just individually when we turn the lights on and that's it. It's all the way across the board. Thanks for coming, and I didn't mean to lecture you, but I'm finding that, to me, that's a horrendous increase. If we want to keep our water rates down, how can we? It's ridiculous. That kind of an increase is absolutely ridiculous. Take that back.
I fully concur with you, too, Deputy Mayor. Since being elected in 2011, I know that hydro rates, at the residential side, have increased almost 100%, and that was since 2011. And using your numbers, I was doing some quick math in my head, and that's probably about a 30. Out of one side, I can say, thank goodness that they implemented some energy-saving ideas, and yet you still saw an increase, in the hydro bills of about 35%, and that's, and again, they have to pass that along to stay in business, and it's a service that they just have to, we can't do without it, and people will pay for it. And we're going to be taking a good hard look at just that entire rate structure and see what we can do. If the people of Ontario are, if they've had enough of this current government, we're hoping that we can, when we form government, that it'll be a majority government, we'll be able to quickly undo a lot of the things that this government has put upon the people of Ontario and the businesses of Ontario, because we don't want to see businesses leave. We want to encourage growth, economic development here as well.
Any other questions from council? If not, I got some. First of all,
I didn't see your hand.
thanks, Rick, for coming. And like as we were saying earlier on to each other, it's really important for you and for Dave Van Kesteren, our MP, to come to council. That's why we invite you and keep that door open, because we need to hear what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and what you're feeling up there, and you need to hear back from us. And that's always been a great open door policy between our town hall and your office next door. Just going back to the natural gas, I mean, we've all taken our stand down here. We've sent our recommendations off, or whatever you want to call them. So I know that the government has sort of backed off from it, but am I gathering from you that you're not totally convinced that they've really backed off from that?
That's correct. They're playing with words right now. In that leaked document, they did talk about, and they said the words natural gas, a fossil fuel.
Yes.
And now they're saying that, well, we have to reduce our fossil fuel, including fuel heating, by 40% by the year 2030. They didn't say natural gas, but how you're just messing with words. They figured. So we don't believe a word that they're saying right now.
In any of their, I don't even know what it would be. I don't even want to call it science, because it's been so misrepresented on so many levels on this climate change stuff. Do they ever refer to the carbon capture that we do in this area as farmers? Our natural plants are carbon capture engines, and the trees in our province and in our country are carbon capture engines. Have any of them ever actually included that in their projections of how evil bad we are in Ontario and in Canada?
I would say no. I've never heard them say any of that. I'm still trying to figure out whatever happened to global warming. But it's
Well, it happened today.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's climate change now.
Climate change.
And no, we kind of make light of it in a sense, because with a majority government, unfortunately, Your Worship, it's our hands are tied. I mean, we can try and filibuster, I guess, and try to slow things down, and try to slow them down. But sometimes it's, don't confuse us with facts. Our minds made up.
Well, keep fighting on the natural gas side of things, because as you know, we need that here. I don't know if any other provinces are as reliant on natural gas as Ontario is, but we sure are, especially in our area. The other question, as the Deputy Mayor said, if you want to take some questions back to the government, when they get going on their industrial wind turbines, ask them if anybody knows how many truckloads of cement goes into one base for one industrial wind turbine.
Are you talking about carbon footprint?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. I know.
You know,
I know.
like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They should never have had that meeting with Al Gore.
I found the talk about and I forget what you call it, but electrical ground pollution.
Oh, ground current pollution,
Ground
yes.
current pollution. I hadn't heard that
Yeah.
that talked about, but that's really quite interesting and a big concern, I would think, where the cattle herds are mostly held. I don't know how big we are down here in that anymore, but you're right. If it's affecting animals, it's got to be affecting humans as well.
Well, they often said, Your Worship, that current will kill, but voltage won't. And what we've discovered is that in a lot of cases, farmers would say, there's something wrong with my cattle. Maybe it's the feed, they're not eating, they're not drinking, what is it, and so on, without even considering ground current pollution, because they wouldn't have, either heard about it, or it's a case of saying, well, I don't know, do I have it or not, until you test for it. And the OFA have partnered with Ontario Hydro to create what they called a crisis intervention team, with regards to ground current pollution. And I said, well, how's that any different from what you were doing before? Yeah. And as a result of that, farmers, whether it be dairy herds, or whether it be beef, whether it be hogs, whether it be goats, any four-legged animal out there, you've heard of dancing cows. And what's happening is that the current's going up one leg and across their entire body and down another leg, and they're standing there, and their feet are literally going like this, or their tails are wagging, because they're being irritated. They go to get a drink of water, they can't drink. Well, if they don't drink, then of course, their milk production falls off. The body thinks they're sick, and as a result, their system just kicks in and starts fighting infection, and that affects the quality of their milk. It just goes on and on and on, and then family farms are forced to shut down and go out of business. It's very tragic.
One thing you can do for me, though, too, is to take back a big thank you to Minister Hoskins in regard to the hospital, the monies that have come, and also now, this is the first I've heard of this one, too, you mentioned that we've been deemed a high-need area for doctors.
Yep.
And the first report that came out was saying we're A-OK, and we're all going like, are you kidding? So I'm happy to hear that has been changed. So please take a thank you back from the municipality.
Well, what created that was very simple. In Chatham, there was a family doctor who passed away. She had roughly 2,400 patients, and suddenly those 2,400 people were without a doctor, and I was one of her patients.
Yeah.
And so she was my doctor, and when I raised that issue in the question period, he listened, and he listened very intently, and then I went over and talked to him afterwards. And that's where a lot of the question period is just, to use a golf term, during question period you drive for show and you putt for dough.
Yeah.
And so the putting for dough was done off camera, and where the two of us could just sit down and have a tete-a-tete. So I appreciate that.
Yep. Ombudsman, I'm really happy to hear the change in attitude there. And you know what? We've never had a worry here with our relationship with the Ombudsman.
Good.
If they want to try and run municipalities, God bless them. So I know other communities are going to be a lot more fearful of the powers that they now have, but we're A-OK. One question on the election rules that have changed. I know financing rules have changed or are about to change.
Boy, good question.
I thought they were eliminating the ability for municipal councilors or people running for municipal council to get funding from special interest groups, unions, and stuff like that.
There's been talk. I had to talk with political parties,
Right.
not being able to get money from special interest groups as well.
So
And-
I thought that was changing, but if not,
there is probably something there, probably not to the degree. But the other thing that I had mentioned was with regards to firemen, part-time firemen, firefighters who will be allowed to take a leave of absence without it hurting them in the event that they want to run for council.
Okay.
That's one of the issues as well at hand.
Ultimately, are they also changing the campaign time? Because right now you can announce January 1st and start campaigning from day one, right? And I thought that was part of the legislative change as well, or have you not heard?
There has been talk of that.
As well,
Talk of that right now as well.
Okay.
Lengthening the amount of time. Your next election will be in
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Okay, in the fall.
Yeah.
And so what you're suggesting is that, what you're questioning is, will they be allowed to begin campaigning, say?
We already campaigned. It's already too long. So I was happy to hear they were discussing shortening it.
Shortening it, yeah.
Yes. So I hope that's true.
Yeah.
for everybody,
Well, having
including the
gone through-
general public.
Having gone through a provincial election that seemed to have an extended period of time for campaigning, I empathize.
And finally, and so I can let you go, the changes in the ministries, there were some people that moved on or stepped down that we had developed a fairly good relationship with as well. I know we can carry some of those relationships on to their new appointments, but when it comes to the new ministers, we may need your assistance in getting us in to meet with them at some point in time. So
Absolutely. Please, you know where my office is, and if there's anything we can do, or just pick up the phone, give me a call, and happy to make some phone calls on your behalf.
very good.
So we can keep this municipality moving forward as
rolling.
it is, and
You
you
bet.
are doing a great job, and I want to thank you. And I truly appreciate, Your Worship, the working relationship that the municipality has with my office here in Leamington as well. It's greatly appreciated. I know that sometimes you go send people over to my office and vice versa. It's a great working relationship, and I want to encourage and thank the councilors also for the opportunity. I know you've got a lot of business ahead of you right now. This will wrap up my 4th event for the day, so I think with your permission, I want to say thank you very, very much to everyone, and look forward to my return whenever that might be.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Right,
Thank you.
take it. All right, Council, I'm going to change the agenda just a little bit, and I'll apologize to Ray right away. But you are paid, so we're going to make you wait just a little bit because the unpaid people are here, and we want to talk about the addendum that was put before us in regard to a proposed commercial and multi-residential development. So, nope. So we will simply move into that, and I believe Tracy will probably be taking us through that to begin.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Just to provide you with a little bit of background on this, it's proposed that the subject property, 139-141 Talbot Street East, be developed for an 8 multi-unit dwelling with a total of 31 units. Figure 1 in the plan in my report identifies the site plan. Please note that the commercial development is permitted in the front portion, but it's not included in this development at this time. The applicants would have to come forward at a later date for an application for site plan control agreement for the commercial portion. The application was subject to a zoning bylaw amendment, and it was approved by council in 2015. Then it was appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board. However, it was later withdrawn as part of a settlement between the landowners, which was approved by the Ontario Municipal Board. The settlement agreement requires certain conditions be placed in the site plan control regarding the abutting driveway. The agreement also requires that administration meet with the abutting property owners and provide notice of the council meeting, which has been completed. The site plan will allow for the development of the residential units all as one parcel, so they won't be severed off. It'll just be included as one particular parcel. It's broken up into 2 5-unit buildings, 4 4-units, 1 3-unit, and 1 2-unit dwelling. The property does have access from an internal driveway from Talbot Street. The address through the site plan addresses the concerns of the abutting neighbors as per administration's review along the southerly property line, as well as the neighbors along the Foundry Street area, as a new fence is going to be proposed and constructed on the east, south, and west property boundaries. And cedars will be planted around the entire perimeter of the site, and the front of each unit will be planted with a small landscape area. Break walls will also be built in the rear to ensure that all stormwater management and drainage is all contained on the site. There'll be no opportunities for water to release onto abutting property owners. And there's one area that is considered an outdoor amenity area. It includes a basketball court, playground, benches, and some trees. The applicant is responsible for that area, not the municipality. And the applicant is also responsible for waste, recycling services, and snow removal on the property. So the recommendation this evening is that the site plan for the proposed residential development only be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into the agreement. And it was as per the approved pending item, which was municipal stormwater management and associated lot grading plans, which we do have now on file with the municipality. Council was also presented with some correspondence from the abutting property owners, and I'll allow them to make that presentation, and I'm prepared to respond if council requires.
Okay, any questions from council in this regard? Councilor Verbicki.
The mayor, thanks. Tracy, just caught my eye. I mean, we just got this today, so what's so special about Unit 21? That's going to only be the only unit with fire sprinklers?
So that's a unit where the fire truck cannot access to it within a certain distance that's required. So it would require sprinkler to assist in fire suppression.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Tracy, when it comes to snow removal, you said they're responsible for the snow removal. Will they be trucking it out of there, or will they be putting it into a certain area? I don't know if it's shown on the diagram. If it is, it's hard to see. Can you maybe expand on that portion?
If you don't mind, I'll allow the planning consultant Jackie Lastline to explain.
Good evening. Yes, do you have a copy of the site plan? Is there a copy in your report? Basically, snow removal will be dealt with at the end of each of the roadways, placing it up at, okay. Placing it up away from the different residences. The snow removal will occur up the driveway and will not impede the binders' access, the ingress and egress from their driveway that's been allocated for their entrance off of the property. So if you can see at the north end, the east end, so you can see at the end of the driveway here, the end of the driveway here, and the end of the driveway here. This is the entrance that was agreed upon between the binders and our clients to allow for an access onto the driveway that we are going to be constructing so that they don't have to enter Talbot Street directly. And the intent is to have the snow plow come straight through here and remove it. A couple of the other issues that were raised in that correspondence I can speak to as well. The garbage, there'll be obviously an agreement with the Windsor Disposal Services to remove the garbage on a contractual basis. If there's ever a problem, they can be called out and they can be brought in to clean it up. But the intent at this point is once or twice a week to have that garbage removed and the recycling removed as well. You can see on the site plan, right here is a garbage facility that will include both garbage and recycling. It will be within an enclosed fenced area, so nobody within the neighborhood will have to deal with it. The other issue raised by the binders that live here is the playground area. Intended is a basketball court, and the other half of it will be sand and will play equipment basically for the kids. There's going to be trees around it, but it still will be visible. The trees will be kept small. There will be lights around the basketball court, but we've ensured that the entire parcel will be lit with shrouded and full cutoff lighting. There will not be any light pollution. We've already had a photometric plan prepared that shows there will not be any light bleeding on any of the neighbor properties. So this takes into account the hotel or motel property, the residential property along here, as well as the residential property along here. So the photometric plan shows that very clearly. Another concern that was raised was the entrance from the driveway. And what's hard to recognize here, the proportion is that there's approximately 10 feet lead-in between the fenced area, the entrance, and the actual driveway. So there will be sufficient area for the car to come out, to see both ways, have a clear view onto the driveway, and to access it. The intent is to have a 6-foot-high board fence around the perimeter for the protection of the residences that are there. I believe that answers all the questions that were raised.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tracy, remind me, how many units did we have in the original site plan? Just ballparkish.
I believe 2 units were removed. one unit had been eliminated and the entire east end of the development had been shifted to allow for a more suitable layout.
Yes, I read that in the thing. I just wondered numbers. Did we have like
Yeah.
38 before? So we've gone down substantially?
There was, I believe, at one point there was 36, then I came involved, there were 33, and then since the bylaw was approved, there's been two removed.
Okay.
One being the unit between 17 and 18 up in this area. It was felt that it was hidden. And then there was another unit that was down here that was removed to allow for more parking.
Okay,
Because it
thank
was
you.
raised as an issue that there should be sufficient parking. There's approximately 1.75 parking spaces per unit, and I believe 1.25 is required. We far exceed what's required.
Okay, thank you. And then one more, if I may. Also addressed in the letter and subsequent letters from neighbors is the drainage and the sewage. I'm assuming, Alan, you would be the person to answer this. These folks in the neighborhood have already had issues, and now you're adding more rooftops and more cement surfaces, hard surfaces. Do you see there being a substantial problem? And, you know, I'm thinking right now we're looking at St. Louis School, and they're adding cement or hardtop parking lot, and they have to do a drainage study, or stormwater management. So I'm assuming here there's something to take care of this extra hard surface?
Excuse me, thanks. You're correct, there is a stormwater management plan associated with this site. But I was talking to the binders ahead of the council meeting, and it's a bit difficult to explain these, you know, at a council meeting, but essentially the property itself right now drains into a combined sewer. So all the surface water, it's an open parcel, right? So it drains into a combined sewer, and it's in that, cutting across that parcel, you see a diagonal line. That's an easement for a combined sewer, and it connects to a sanitary sewer on Talbot Street, just about in front of the Half Century Club. So if you can picture this, when all's said and done, the parcel itself will have two separate sewer systems, a storm and a sanitary. So this will separate out the rainwater. It will drain directly into a storm sewer on Talbot Street that drains straight into Sturgeon Creek. And the sanitary sewage will then be directed into the existing sanitary sewer on Talbot Street. So the benefiting part is that the rainwater that today drains into the combined sewer will no longer drain into the combined sewer. So in theory, there will be less sewage getting into the sanitary sewer system.
Okay, I had Councillor Dunn next.
Through you, Your Worship. My question is the sprinkler. Which unit is the one with the sprinkler?
Okay, if you take a look, it's this one right here. It was felt by the building department that it was a belt and suspenders situation. The fire hydrants that are going to be located on the property are in proximity, but to make sure, just to give that insurance, the sprinkler system has been provided so that there's no issue with the fire truck trying to get into it in time, that the sprinkler system will basically accommodate before the fire department can get into it.
Thank you.
Councillor Hammond?
Your Worship, thank you. Jackie, I think, you know, in reading through the letters submitted by the binders, I had circled 3 or 4 of those as well. Snow removal was a concern. The basketball court, that's new. I mean, we hadn't heard about that until just recently. And the snow removal, as I said. So those have been addressed. And I just had a question for Al. Doesn't the Selkirk drain run beneath that, through the center of that property?
Thanks. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of that part of the drain, but that's what I was describing earlier, that diagonal line, double line that you see through that property.
Part 3 is where the location of the system goes through.
There is a drain there, and that will remain in place and functioning.
In Your Worship, through to Councillor Hammond, we've made sure that in our design that we do not impose upon that easement whatsoever, so that we don't have any impediment to the access of it. If I may make one comment, what has to be remembered is what the units are going to be for rental purposes. The amenities that have been provided are being provided because it is a rental facility, so that the residents that live there have those amenities to enjoy. The town of Leamington needs a facility exactly of this, something for families, where kids can live and can play and have some green grass to play on. It's not an apartment building, it's going to be a townhouse complex where the families can move into, they can have kids, and it's needed in the town of Leamington.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Jackie. I know you say that, and I appreciate you saying that. I still have some reservations. I mean, I'm not voting against it because our administration is certainly giving it the green light, but I do have reservations about it being tucked in, back in behind. I realize you've come down in numbers in it, and I'm sure all of council appreciates that you've done that because there was a huge concern. When you squeeze so many people into a small area, it still gives me some reservation. I know we need rental properties, but I look around our community. We have landlords who don't make their residents take care of the area around their houses. So to tell me we need more of this type of housing does not sit particularly well with me. I would lots of times wish that we could shame some of our property owners into making sure that their properties are kept up, that they don't put 10,000 people in one house, that they mow their lawn, that they paint their buildings. We're not seeing a great history or a great track record of that kind of behavior happening. So we're going to be, like I said before, we're going to be watching this. I really hope that we're making the correct decision. I'm not waving any flags on this because I still think it's a lot of people to put in a cramped space behind other houses. I wish everybody a ton of luck, but please, please keep up the property, keep up what you've promised us here, because really, we're, like I said, have some reservations.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Jackie, have your clients, have they told you their plans for the front, since they're not going to be developing it with the commercial part? Do they plan on making that a green area, let's say, the undeveloped portion there? Is that going to be a part that's kept up by them as well?
Our clients are, at this point, intending to keep it as a green space, and then in the future, they'll come in for commercial development. But at this point, they don't have any plans, so it will be maintained green space. Yep.
Okay, so I don't know whether I go back to Tracy with this one or not, but it was Tracy's comments that I wrote down about the fencing that you mentioned the east, the south, and the west boundaries. We're going to have a new 6-foot wooden fence put up. The north boundary already has a wooden fence, and the only reason I ask this question is because I'm going back to our initial public meetings, and the residents on the east side and the north side, maybe even on the west side, I can't remember, were saying that they're fearing a lot more people cutting through their yards. So if the fencing is all the way around, that should inhibit that from happening. So I'm not sure who wants to answer.
Your Worship, the north side is an existing fence. There will not be any pedestrian access through. The east side is a commercial neighbor at the moment. That will have a new 6-foot high board fence. This will be a 6-foot high board fence, 6-foot high board fence. Along here is going to be a retaining wall, and a fence will be on top of the retaining wall to the maximum height of 6 feet as well.
So having not driven back in, the wall on the north, or the fence on the north, is in good shape right now?
Yes, there will not be access
Okay.
off the property
Good.
through
Okay.
anybody else's property,
Very good.
except for the the binder property and the driveway that was
Correct.
agreed upon.
Yep.
Yep.
Further questions? Councillor Hammond?
Your worship, once again, thank you. Just to further add to some of the comments made by the deputy mayor, I travel that way quite a bit, and with respect to maintenance and some other things, the owners of the property here, we all know that as of a week ago, the grass was 2 foot high there, and had just been recently cut. There's been talk here about putting in a 6-foot fence on the east side. Meanwhile, you've just installed looks like a 3-foot wire fence in the last.
Yep, before you answer, come forward, introduce yourself, and then that way everybody at home gets to know who you are too. So,
My name is John Abbott, and we will be the developer. We didn't put that fence in there. That was put by the owner of the property of Pete's Paint.
Okay, thanks,
Yep.
John, for the clarification.
Not a problem.
But just further to that, too, I too am not going to vote against it, but I'm just concerned, and I mean, I'm glad to see that we've made a number of changes and downsized somewhat. I'm just concerned that it's putting a lot of people into a very small area, and I really, really hope that it works out. Thank you.
I'll make sure that we will do our best.
Thank you, John.
Councillor Dunn?
Through you, Your Worship, the fence that was existing against the other neighbors, what's the height on that fence? Because you're talking about...
I haven't measured it, but I stood right beside it, and it matches my height, so I would say it's about 6.
Oh, okay.
I haven't actually measured it myself, but I stood right beside it, so I think it's a 6.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, Councillor Jacobs? Oh, moving the recommendation, okay. Support? Councillor Hammond? Motion on the floor. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor of that motion? Motion carries. Thank you. So now we'll move back and invite Ray Duhamel to come forward, planner with Jones Consulting, to speak to us in regard to the Leamington official plan. And Tracy, were you starting us off on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just to give you a little bit of background, more about what an official plan is, and then I'm going to hand it over to Ray, who's got a little PowerPoint presentation for us tonight, and he'll present sort of where we're going to go next as an official launch. And council will have an opportunity to provide feedback at this time, and that feedback will generate sort of his foundation for his terms of reference. So just to review again what an official plan is, it's to provide long-term future direction for land uses and resource management through the entire municipality. So it includes urban and rural areas. The official plan designation includes residential, employment lands, agricultural, and then there's some overlays such as the Conservation Authority has natural heritage, and the ministries also give us some additional layers that we include, like marsh areas or wetland areas. In addition to that, the OP establishes land division policy, so it gives us those policies for the Committee of Adjustment to follow with respect to severing off land. It also talks about servicing requirements, where the municipality is serviced with municipal water, sewer, and what am I missing? Sewer, water, and storm. Sorry. That's that third, the missing one, right? The document also includes a lot of general nature policies, sort of motherhood statements that help us encourage and kind of veer council and administration through a particular direction for growth. The OP is a 20-year document. It's reviewed every 5 years. The goal is to keep up with trends and the economy and any development pressures that the municipality may be occurring. At the time of adoption of the Leamington official plan in 2008, Council requested an opportunity to do some official plan housekeeping amendments. We did retain Jones Consulting to do the OPA number 1. However, after public consultation, it was a decision of Council to defer the decision of the application. So we have had actually a lot of work done on the official plan already, and Ray was the one who did all that work. So we did bring a report to Council in 2014 to approve the project to move forward because there's a lot of foundation that's already been prepared, and Jones Consulting was the more practical way to move forward on the project. With respect to the timing, we were ready to do the OP review in 2013. However, it was held back a little bit because we wanted the County of Essex official plan to move forward and get approval. Now that has now been done, and they are also agreeing to undertake a farm lot study to determine the minimum farm size for municipal farms around the entire region. So we're now in a position that we would like to move forward and launch the official plan review. We're treating this as our 5-year review, even though it's taken a little bit longer. It's proposed to take about a year to do the work, so we'll conclude sometime in early 2017. By that time, the official plan work will be done on the farm lot study. We'll be able to incorporate any direction on that into our official plan policies. The preliminary months will be focused in on gathering information, and that's where we are today. So to initiate that first stage, Ray is here to make a presentation to get some high-level comments on what administration would like to see achieved with their official plan review. And Figure 2 and 3 of the report identifies the county OP policy settlement areas and the Leamington boundary and settlement areas. And as a result of the discussions with Council today, and Ray did meet with directors earlier on today as well, that'll incorporate into his terms of reference for his work. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ray Duhamel.
Thank you, Tracy, and your worship and mayors of council. It's a pleasure to be back here. It's been a little bit of time since I've been in front of you, but it's always nice to be back. I enjoy my time here. Tracy gave you a great overview of what an official plan is, and I guess it's kind of relevant to the application you just thought about, that you just debated about. One of the most overlooked planning tools that's before is your official plan, and I would say that generally across the province wherever I work. Everybody pays a lot of attention to zoning bylaws, and sometimes they pay less attention, particularly the public, to what their official plan says. And our planning system is hierarchical, so it flows downward. So whatever's in your official plan, that's what your zoning bylaw will implement. And that's what your plans of subdivision application, your site plan approvals, your condominium applications, your community improvement plans, they all implement what your official plan direction is. So one of the starting points in just presenting to you this evening is to talk about, is it time to do basically a brief and quick review and update to your official plan? Or would you like to see some more meaningful updates and improvements to that plan to effectively call it a new generation or a new official plan? And the best way to describe the difference is that the last time we went through the OPA 1 exercise, that was a housekeeping amendment exercise. We incorporated changes to the provincial policy statement. We incorporated changes to the Planning Act through what was called Bill 51, if you've heard of that term before, and some minor housekeeping amendment matters. And that was what was rolled into your document. And that's the minimum test that's necessary to review your official plan. As part of, now we've advanced forward, it's now 2016. Some of the bulk of the reports that were prepared for your official plan go back to 2000 and 2001. So your vision may have very well have changed from what was originally set back in 2000 as an example. So there's an opportunity to just collect feedback from you. I had a really great working meeting with the senior management team today to talk about things that they would like to see incorporated in the official plan. As Tracy mentioned, that would frame the terms of reference that you would ultimately consider and approve as part of your official plan review. But vitally important is any feedback that you have on things that you would like to see as part of this official plan review. I have a few on the screen. I'm just going to flip to this. This is a rather short presentation, but the first point is talking about whether you want a new or an updated official plan. Second, of course, there's the government is never short on making changes to the Planning Act that we always have to keep updated with, and because of the last housekeeping update wasn't incorporated into your official plan just yet, we have a few bills that have to be worked on. So the Bill 51 amendments have to be incorporated, Bill 73 amendments have to be incorporated, and there's a few other policy changes, such as the 2014 provincial policy statement is new, notwithstanding that we had a 2005 one as well that was always keeping us on our toes. As planners, it's always something new to understand. In addition, as Tracy alluded to, a major change in the county has been the update of the county's official plan. That was an exercise that took a number of years and included a fairly exhaustive review of the residential and employment land needs throughout the county. And for the first time, through provincial direction, the establishment of the actual boundaries of your settlement areas. So up until the county's plan, this recent version of the county's plan, settlement areas were rather just general areas within a municipality. And now the province is directing that those boundaries need to be established. And those are the areas where you focus intensification, focus affordable housing, and focus growth. So the delineation of those boundaries was a very key component of the County of Essex official plan. And of course, being a hierarchical planning system, Leamington's official plan must conform with the county's official plan. We talked on a whole bunch of topics today at the senior management level, but I didn't have the benefit of that discussion when I did this presentation last week. But certainly the waterfront is a very critical item that was discussed at the senior management team level. The importance of focusing still on your uptown area and potentially being able to link those in a very positive way to create a dynamic urban environment for you. Tracy mentioned your agricultural lot size study. The county, as I think you're aware, has undertaken an agricultural lot size study. I'm the co-author of that with an agronomist that is on the team. We're meeting with the steering committee tomorrow and in terms of reviewing the draft of that report, and ultimately we have to proceed through to the full public process. We need comments from council members across the county and from county council, and ultimately whatever county council decides on the agricultural lot size study, whatever they do, will have to be reflected in the Leamington official plan. Of course, Southeast Leamington having a policy framework to address areas that are not safe to live in, to be quite blunt with you, and where there needs to be, this issue has been around since well before the last update was looked at. And it's my recommendation as part of this presentation is to include policies in your official plan that will put clear policy direction on what is and what is not allowed within Southeast Leamington. And of course, staff, because the document is over 15 years old from its original inception, the background reports, staff have a number of changes that they would like to see in your document that can be incorporated. But all of that is important, but it's vitally important that we also hear what's important to each and every one of you so that we can frame the terms of reference properly from the very beginning. Process timeline, I think it's in Tracy's report, but just to reiterate, we thought we could spend the next month or two working out what the actual issues you want to address as part of your official plan review. Again, the minimum necessary, or there are specific items such as the waterfront that you want to focus on, or other areas that you want to be incorporated into your official plan review. So hopefully we can work through those by August, and then sometime in September, and that might be ambitious depending on what issues you come forward with and ultimately approve, but let's say the fall, we would see a policy report that would be brought forward to your attention that would have options for you to consider. Would you like to do this or that? Would you like to, on a variety of different subject matters? And then following that policy options report, a full public consultation session, and ultimately come back to you with a staff recommendation, hopefully that you would adopt your new official plan. And if you're satisfied with it, and if you are, then it gets shuttled up to the county, and they're the approval authority for your official plan. So I just included a couple of slides quickly. This is the first schedule, one of the first schedules in the county's official plan, and I show it to you just because of for the first time how important it was within Essex, and really a driver by the province to establish where the primary settlement areas are for growth. Those are the areas in yellow. Of course, in Leamington, you have a lot less settlement areas than some other municipalities within the county, and then the areas in green, they're allowed to be developed to their full build-out, but they're not intended to be the primary area of growth for forever, in a sense. It's the primary settlement areas in yellow, which are those areas. And then, of course, expansion would ultimately occur when the need arises to the primary settlement areas. So I just wanted to bring that map to your attention. You probably or may have already seen it. And then, of course, your own official plan amendment, that was OPA 1. That was where the boundary of Leamington was established, as you'll see coming around the edge. That was incorporated into your draft OPA 1. That was what was in large part carried forward into the county official plan with the working with your staff to include that into that document. And on the right-hand side of the page, again, just one of the hot topics or the key topics is Southeast Leamington and establishing a policy framework. That's what your official plan amendment number 1 was proposing to do. And so following through with that, you would again receive a policy options report to consider what options are available for that area. So that was a very high-level overview, Your Worship and members of council. I'd be very happy to answer any questions, and more importantly, I'd love to hear any ideas or feedback on any key topics that you think this official plan really should focus on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hammond?
Your Worship, thank you. Ray, we all understand that our uptown has gone through a number of changes since 2000 or 2001. I would personally like to see us spend a great deal of time both in strategy and developing something over the next 5 years that we can, and we'll need some help in this area to help us try to, again, develop a strategy or a plan to help improve our downtown. You know, we can't ignore the other things that go on as our lakefront and other things, but I think we need to get back again to the downtown area and spend a great deal of time on it.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Hammond. Now, you do have a community improvement plan for your uptown, but one of the key topics that we were discussing around the senior management table was what is permitted in your downtown right now? What would you like to see in the downtown? Are there barriers to development that are preventing your uptown effectively from being preventing investment in your uptown? So that's one of the key topics that I took away from the senior management team meeting. So it's right in line with that, Councillor Hyman. Thank you.
25 acres. Councillor Verbeke?
Thank you, worthy Mayor. Tracy or Ray, just because the county says this and says that, of course, my pick is with the specialized farming we have down here, orchards and greenhouses. Are we still going to allow 25 acres, or are we going to have to go big or go home?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Verbeke, the county council will be faced with a decision that they will have to make. I can say whatever decision they do make, whether to allow what exists currently, to challenge the ministry on that point with the background work that's done, to continue with a larger lot size, whatever decision that county council will make, you will be required to implement that county decision. So I'm not passing the buck off to the county, but ultimately they're undertaking the study. You can hear me, right? Sorry,
Yep.
if that's
Yes, we
not
can.
close
Yep.
enough. They are undertaking the study. Ultimately, if county council, it's just a study at that point. So the study makes a recommendation. It can be changed, but ultimately, whatever study that the county council accepts and endorses, if they direct that an official plan amendment be undertaken and adopted at the county level, which no longer has to be approved by the ministry, by the way, it's the county has their own approval authority for amendments. Whatever amendment goes into that document will have to be reflected in your own. So I encourage you, of course, through your spokespeople, through to the county, to make sure that any concerns or thoughts or ideas that you have to make sure that is passed along. And I think I have a good handle on what your thoughts are, and I can tell you that, in short, without having to doing the justice to the steering committee who's looking at this, and it's a draft report, there are arguments to be made in both sides of the equation. And I think what the report that we prepared outlined exactly what those are. So ultimately, there should be no more question marks why lots should be smaller or why lots should be larger. In fact, I think the report addresses all those question marks. Well, you know more than I do, because I certainly don't know how county council.
We're still pushing for 25 acres. I can tell you that.
Understood.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ray, you asked us if we should ask for a whole new, what do you call it? The word's leaving me.
Official plan.
Official plan, thanks. Going ahead 5 to 10 years. But the one that's current is really already 15 years old. So it's kind of a conundrum to ask us that. I would sooner go with whatever our admin thinks, because I don't think I'm qualified enough to make that kind of a decision. Ray, so that's my one little comment there. I'm always amazed when people say, well, this has been a council decision since 1999, and I'm thinking, do you know how long ago that was? But anyway, CIPs. Will you be looking at doing or implementing or possibility of CIPs in other areas? Is that something that falls under this? Why can't I keep thinking of official plan review? Is that something? It's come to the conversation a number of times that different areas think that if they had a CIP, well, we've discussed it around the table as well. Is that something that the official plan would address in any way, shape, or form?
Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor McDonald. Absolutely, what an official plan will do for you is establish, and it's a statutory requirement, to establish where the boundaries of a community improvement plan area are. So you cannot establish any financial incentives or create a community improvement plan without it being built right into your official plan. You may recall for your Uptown Community Improvement Plan, which I wrote for you, I can't remember now, 3 or 4 years ago, or whichever it is, I lose track of time sometimes. Ultimately, we needed to amend the boundary of the Uptown area to reflect on the ground what you wanted to see defined as your Uptown. So that's one of those. That's already been incorporated into your official plan. But certainly, if there are other areas, if you wanted, your official plan speaks to a number of CIP areas. But if you wanted those, changes to them or new areas identified, absolutely they should be incorporated into your official plan. And then the question is, when would you, as soon as you put them in, it's just lines on paper until an actual community improvement plan is actually prepared. So at some point you have to decide, is this an area that you want to start and do a community improvement plan for? And if you do, what resources do you want to put into it? And remember, if you recall, even back when we were in a similar session like this, when we started the community improvement plan for your Uptown, we needed the blunt question answered: how much money do we have to work with? And that's always the key question, because it's very difficult to come up with money to be able to put into incentives. But that was where we had to start our process. And you gave me here's the number. So from there, we devised the best program that we could to give the best value for the taxpayer dollar and to drive the most investment. Was it successful? Only time answers that question. But ultimately, you need to start. The first step is put in your official plan, and then from there, you can make your subsequent decisions.
Okay, so really what we should do is sit down and look at our official plan just on our own. So, you're asking us for input, but we can't just shoot stuff off the top of our heads and hit you with things like pie in the sky dreams. So we really should be looking at our official plan ourselves and see if we've got something to come up with to suggest to you.
Your Worship, through to Deputy Mayor McDonald, I would love if you would read through your official plan and become familiar with, I'm sure you are, but really familiar with the different areas and things that you would like to see improved. I wasn't expecting real detailed, change section, 4.4.5 tonight, but more, what are the hot topics, the key topics that you think that Leamington really needs to address in a window going out 20 years? Infrastructure and servicing decisions can be made much longer than that. They can go up to 50 years. But what direction does it need to head in the next 20 years? If I can get that feedback from you now or over the course of the next coming months or even beyond that, it really is central to understanding what does the current document say versus what your current vision is. And if those align, that's great. Maybe that'll answer the question where it's really just a housekeeping update with a few add-ons. Or if you need a new direction for your plan, then there's a slightly different turn. So that's the kind of high-level direction that we're looking for. And not to put you on the spot that you need to fire them off to me right now. If there are hot topics right now, that's wonderful. But that's why the work program is kind of laying forth a groundwork of about a couple of months to ponder where do you want to head as a municipality. And you're not approving a plan in August. You're simply saying, here's the direction that we're going to start. You let the analysis unfold in front of you and make informed decisions on what you like and what you don't like.
Okay, and then further to that, and then I'll stop. Oh, well, I think what you've written down on your report certainly reflects where this council has been headed. And obviously, again, you've talked to admin, so we're pretty much in step with our staff. Waterfront has been a huge step for us, a very exciting step. So I think you'll know that has to be one of our priorities. And with that too, we're hoping, and I caught what you said about aligning the waterfront with the uptown. And I'm really hoping to see some bigger thoughts on that rather than just what we're thinking in our own little, microcosm there that we just see sometimes too close to our noses, that we don't see the bigger picture. So I'll go along with that. It just flustered. I said to Peter, well, what do you think we should do? Because I felt like you wanted an answer right tonight, and I'm trying to think of all these things that we could possibly say, well, we need this, this, and this. So that was my reason for all my muddled thinking was, okay, how quickly do you need it and what do you need? So, okay, as long as we're good, I'm going to go through the official plan, because you know what, this stuff, you forget the little things. If it's not something that's in front of you every day or every week or even every month, they're not things that come to mind that quickly. But it looks to me like you're already off on a good start that we already have worked towards in this term. So I'll be talking to you.
Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Going back to the CIP for a moment, you said once it's in the official plan, we're able to modify that, though, during the period, are we not? Simply because I know before that we had discussions in expanding, like we had, like Block A to Block B, then we said, well, maybe we should go to Block C now. We have that opportunity through an official plan. We're not cemented in there, right?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Jacobs, the one thing about planning is that it's never cemented. I can assure you that. The one thing that I can share with you is that you can't do a community improvement plan unless there's a boundary and a policies in your official plan to enable that under the legislation. But that doesn't say that at any point you couldn't amend your boundary if you wanted a different boundary, or as part of your official plan update, you may want to look and say, well, this boundary should change, or that boundary should change, or there should be a new community improvement area. So you can do that as part of this review. You could do it a year from now. You could do it from 5 years from now. You're never stuck that, oh, well, that's all I can ever work with. The only encouragement I can provide you in terms of thinking about community improvement plans is the same discussion that we had when we started the Uptown one was, the bigger the area, the smaller you diffuse your investment. So in an ideal world, you focus the investment area in the tightest window possible to provide the most bang for your buck. But that rule is just a general rule. There may be a reason why smaller dollar amounts over a broader area is a better plan. So those are the tough decisions that you have to make. Hopefully, as part of this process, we can provide you with options and some background work to assist in your deliberations on that.
And if I may, Your Worship, the other question I have is that I think we had our strategic plan in January of 2014. Now, is that like our goals that we had set? And I think it was the first time during my tenure on council anyway that we actually went beyond a 4-year period. I think we looked at 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Now, will those recommendations or the goals that we had set at that time be part or looked at in the official plan amendments that we're looking at making here?
Through your Worship to Councillor Jacobs, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't mention that in my presentation. But there's a distinction between what a strategic plan is versus what an official plan is. A strategic plan can have actions and objectives and goals similar to an official plan. But what a strategic plan does is it's effectively an action plan that you're setting out to try to achieve. We didn't have the benefit of that action plan when we undertook your official plan amendment number 1, for example. So certainly that would inform us right away of some of the key topics that you want to hit on. And maybe that strategic plan, in addition to those items, there's something else that pops up that, over the next couple of months that you'd like that either senior management or yourselves would like us to focus on. But 100% that would be rolled into your official plan review.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, Ray, luckily for you, I have read the official plan from front to back. I can say it confidently. No, I'd be lying to you if that was the case. When I first got this job, I don't recall anybody saying, here, Wilkinson, here's your official plan. You got a month to read it and get back to us with your thoughts. I too will be like Deputy Mayor McDonald. I need to look closer at it. But what is important, this council here, this one that I've been a part of for 2 years now, along with our other newcomers here, Hammond and Dunn, we were part of the waterfront development. I like to think that is this council here, that is a big inspiration behind us. And when I voted in favor of that, my inspiration behind that was to have a downtown that complements our waterfront. Super excited about what we're doing with our waterfront. I really am. It gets more exciting, it seems like by the week, with our waterfront. That is something that this community, everybody has really rallied behind too. Everybody gives you a attaboy, great job, go get them. When we first got on council here, I like some of the other, everybody wants to talk about our downtown though, and I've tried to, in those discussions, anybody who wants to criticize the downtown, I say we got to get that waterfront right. And once we get that right, we're gonna have a downtown that's going to complement that as well. I hope you keep that in mind with the work that you do on the. I always thought we were going to develop a new OP. I thought right from the beginning it wasn't a matter are we updating or are we going to create one. I thought we were creating one. I didn't realize we could update. So yeah, those would be my thoughts here. My major inspiration behind is to get that waterfront right, and yes, keep a close eye on the downtown, how it's going to complement each other. Be my thoughts. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think just to help council put the question into context, at the end of our meeting, Rob Sharon kind of helped to summarize it, and I think it helps as we relate to the strategic plan as well. If we break it down into big chunks, we're talking about, one, the waterfront, which is immediately followed by or in conjunction with the uptown. So that's 2. 3 is the industrial lands to the north. And how are we going to drive the economic development there? What does the official plan, how can we use the official plan to help drive that economic development in the north? And then we talk about growth and growth for the future. We have a unique situation where the Caldwell First Nations have purchased some of the lands where we initially had residential lands slated to go. What do we do with that? We still have all of the infrastructure in place in the east part of Leamington near the East Arterial Road, which would make it natural for growth to move there. But then we've also talked about the potential environmental impact on the west part of Leamington along Seacliff Drive, the fact that all of those residents along that shoreline are not on a sewer system. We are on septic systems there. And to go along with our